not a queen or a monster. I'm the goddess of death. What were you the god of again?
Hello there, Whatculture fans. I'm Simon from Whatculture with a new review for you today of Thor Ragnarok. So basically, here's the gist. This is the third movie in the Thor franchise, sub-series of the MCU, which is pretty much, it's probably fair to say, the least of the franchises. Mostly thanks to the fact that the last film, The Dark World, was not that great. It's usually classified as the worst one of the MCU. It's not really all that unfair. What happened between the first one and the second one was a fundamental misunderstanding of the tone, and it just didn't really go down very well. The sequel was so bad that it could have actually killed Thor as a standalone character, and it wouldn't have been all that terrible if he had just been used as only an Avengers character in Avengers Age of Ultron and then the Infinity War movies. But this was not a bad idea, bringing him back for a threequel, as they call them. Taika Waititi was the somewhat surprising directorial choice. He's used to doing comedies, indie comedies in fact. This is not the kind of thing you would expect him to do, but then Marvel have a track record of doing this. The Russos weren't known for doing comic book movies or even blockbusters before this. They made You, Me and Dupree before they made Captain America Winter Soldier, for instance. They've also hired the likes of Peyton Reed, and even Jon Favreau made Elf just before he started making the Iron Man movies. So you shouldn't really look too much into what directors do before they do Marvel things. But the difference here is that Taika Waititi has actually made a comedy film with Thor Ragnarok instead of his style being sort of enveloped by what the MCU usually does. This is still his movie, and that's a very good thing. So, is it any good? The first thing to note about Thor Ragnarok is it is actually a comedy film. It's not your standard MCU comic book movie. It still has the same beats. There's a lot of spectacle, a lot of action, a lot of character-driven moments, and Thor goes on a journey from sort of naivety to experience, which is your framework for every comic book movie, basically. But everything seems to be played for a laugh. There's a lot of lines in there that are straight-up comedy. There's a lot of moments that will actually leave you lolling. So Thor goes back home, knows something is wrong, and in order to prevent the coming of Ragnarok, which is the end of Asgard and the death of all the Asgardians, he sets about putting everything right, which is exactly what we expected from Age of Ultron when he had the vision. This coincides with the rise of Hela, who is a new villain played by Cate Blanchett, who basically wants Ragnarok to happen because she's the goddess of death and she likes nothing more than death. Obviously the name. This first meeting does not go well for Thor, and he ends up cast out and on a planet called Sakaar, where he meets the Grandmaster, who basically thrusts him into an arena situation as a gladiator. And as the trailers have shown, this is where he meets Hulk. They fight. Basically, it all escalates towards Thor having to try and prevent Ragnarok despite being a gladiator prisoner. That's all the spoilers you're going to get. Despite the fact that the story seems to have a lot of drama in it, it is very funny. Even the most perilous of situations, when Hela's invading or when there are sort of intended deep emotional beats, it's balanced with some jokes. There's characters in there who are intended solely to be funny. This is not a terrible thing. A lot of criticisms of the MCU say that the gags are thrown in or shoehorned in order to make it feel a bit more light. But in this case, it's a comedy film predominantly that has dramatic beats underneath it. That's why it's so different from everything else. That's why it's a lot of fun. And a lot of people will pick up on the word fun and think, oh, it's just another one of those MCU throwaway movies. It's not like that. It's a little bit more frivolous than you expect it to be, considering it's supposed to be about the end of the world. But it's good fun. This is the sort of escapist, entertaining cinema that you want at this sort of time, especially at this point in the year after the blockbuster season is over. One of the most surprising things about it is that Chris Hemsworth is a very good comedy actor. He's shown it a little bit in some of the Avengers movies, where his dynamic with the other Avengers is this fish out of water character. And then we saw more of it when Taika Waititi directed 2 shorts that were attached to Civil War explaining where Thor was. They were very funny. That's precisely the tone that you should expect from Ragnarok, even though they were taken out of canon and it sort of looked like there were going to be a bit of a diversion. Here comes Cleary! No, he's not coming in. He is coming in.
What are you doing?
Thor.
Thor?
Yeah.
You got some thoughts on it?
I've got some thoughts.
What are you doing? Is it good?
The film, yeah, it's close.
We'll give us your hot take really quickly.
Are you just coming to invade?
Yeah.
Let's keep
give us your
going.
hot take really quickly.
So it's really funny.
I heard that, but is it just funny?
No, I don't think that's a problem. I like just funny films. It's a comedy film. That's the surprising
Well,
thing
I
about
like
it.
you, and you're a comedy guy. Let you crack on.
Thanks, mate.
Mwah.
So, the key core cast: Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, Mark Ruffalo, Tessa Thompson, who plays Valkyrie, who's a new character. They're all very, very good. On top of them, you have people like Jeff Goldblum, who is just Jeff Goldblum. That's what you hire him for now. He comes in, he does his whole Jeff Goldblum stick, and in this case, it's delightfully weird because his character is so alien, so silly, so aloof and so arrogant that it's just a joy. He's supposed to be a sort of villainous character, but he's just so delightful that it's hard to actually hold anything against him. More traditionally villainous is Hela, who's Cate Blanchett, who isn't actually in it as much as you might think, because there's a lot of story elements that are in the air that have to be balanced, but she's very good. She has a sort of physical performance that is very serpentine. She sort of slithers around like a classic femme fatale sort of character. She's very good. You don't like her, which is sort of key to these things, but she has that Loki-esque charm. There are some compromises. This is not a flawless film by any means. The action is not as good as it has been in previous films, particularly those done by the Russos. Maybe it's because Taika Waititi doesn't do action films, and that's probably why the comedy works a lot better than the action sequences do. But there's still some really good spectacle, and there's a lot of stylish moments. This is a gorgeous looking film. It has a lot of influences from Jack Kirby's comic book artwork, and the sci-fi elements, especially the Sakaar set stuff, is very, very good, very beautiful. This is a film of difference. It's nothing like Spider-Man Homecoming, and it's not that much like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, despite how much it looked like that in the marketing. This is a film which isn't even like the two films that come before it in the Thor series. That's how different it is. There aren't as many links to the Infinity War story as you might expect either. This is a standalone. There are some things that tie them together. It's the same as Spider-Man Homecoming. That was not a wider MCU film, but it had beats that reflected the other films. And it's the tone, again, that really stands out as different. It's a straight comedy. It'll make you laugh. There are some bits that almost made me helpless with laughter. This is not what usually happens in Marvel films. And the good news, if you're a Taika Waititi fan, is that there's a lot of him in there. There is one character played by him called Korg, who's an alien, who is very, very much a reflection of his comedy. It's like he knew that he had to compromise some of what he did usually to fit the brief of the MCU. So he introduced this character who is more of a pure Taika Waititi creation. And it isn't just a comedy. You should never think of comedies as just comedies. But this has a lot more than that. There is substance, there is emotion, there's drama, there's spectacle. The big question for a lot of people is where it sits in the MCU in terms of quality. For me, it's better than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's not quite as good as Spider-Man Homecoming, but that puts it in the top 10, and that's all you can aim for when the rest of the ladder is so good. So in a nutshell, this is a very fun movie. It's very entertaining, and it is hilarious in parts. The characters are great for the most part. The story's very good. It's a little bit lighter weight than you might expect, but that's not always a bad thing. And you should definitely go and see it. It is an experience. I've been Simon from Whatculture.com. This was Thor Ragnarok. We'll see you next time. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe.